Arpine.
Hey.
So before we get started, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about setting some ground rules for the therapy sessions, okay? And so I want you to feel like this is a space where you can ask questions and we can come back and have the collaborative discussion about what we're going to talk about, all right? So I wanted to start with by saying that this space here is a safe space for you. What we discuss will stay in this space between us. And so you are free to share whatever you would like with people regarding what we speak about, but in terms of me, it will just stay between us, okay? Now, there are going to be a few situations where I will have to break that confidentiality that we have in this space, and I do want to talk to you about those, and please feel free to ask questions about them, okay? All right. In the event that you tell me that you are going to hurt yourself, especially kill yourself, I will have to say something in order to ensure your safety, okay?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not suicidal or anything. So.
Yes, all right, but in the event that you do share that with me in this space, I just want to let you know that I will have to say something, but that is solely to ensure your safety, okay?
Okay.
All right. And the second case would be if you share with me that you are planning on hurting somebody else, particularly killing somebody else, I will also have to say something to protect them, but also to ensure your safety as well, okay?
Okay.
All right. Any questions?
No.
All right. And then in the event that you tell me about a child being abused, whether you are doing it or you are observing that, I will also have to say something. Similarly, in the case of an elder being abused, so an elder being somebody 65 and older, I will also have to say something and report that. And also in the case of a dependent adult, so an adult who is incapacitated to take care of themselves and in your care. So I will have to say something in those three situations, but hopefully we can have a conversation about that, and we can fill out those reports together. So once again, I'd really like you to feel like this is a safe space where this can be a collaborative discussion. Okay? Yeah. And one more thing, I am currently a trainee, as you know, under Dr. Molly Barretts. And at some moments we will be discussing some of what we talk about in here, but that might be solely so that she can help me and guide you for the best possible treatment, okay?
Okay. Do I get to meet her or?
So, no, however, I will provide you with her contact information if you would like, and we can arrange that if necessary, but she will just be guiding me through this process.
Okay, so you'll be my only therapist, and
Yes.
then you'll just refer to her.
Yes, well,
Okay.
I'll have to break confidentiality if I want to talk about some aspects of what you shared
Okay.
and better improve it. Yeah. All right, any questions?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. All right, so why don't you tell me a little bit about why you've come in today?
It's a long process. I worry a lot, and I've always worried a lot. Ever since I was a kid, I've always, even minor things that come up. It's constantly like, I'll think about something, and then I'll think, okay, like what if this happens as a result of that, and what if that happens as a result of that, and I find that kind of taking up most of my time. And most of my days, and so, for example, the other day I was home alone, and it was kind of, I'm usually never home alone. I live with like my mom, dad, and my sister, but they weren't home, and it was gonna be kind of one of the few days that like I'm the last one leaving and shutting the door.
Okay.
And I specifically observed like myself like turn off the sink and shut the door and leave. But while I was in the car like driving to school, the entire time I was thinking like, what if I didn't shut the water, and what if I didn't lock the door, and what if, it overflows, and what if somebody breaks into our house, and then my parents will be upset at me. And so the entire time like driving to school, and the entire time at school, that was kind of at the back of my mind until like I knew that my dad was gonna get home at like 3 o'clock. And so like I called him and I made sure that like everything was fine like when he got home. And so like they're kind of minor things throughout the day, but it's like if like, I don't know, 5 things like that happen in the day, it's very overwhelming for me to like kind of constantly be thinking of, this happened and this happened, and what if this happens as a result of that, and it's kind of like a chain reaction that I end up going down like a rabbit hole. Yeah.
So it sounds like you keep on wanting to check and ensure things that are okay, and that it's taking up some time in your day.
Yeah, a lot of time.
And do you constantly find yourself doing this about a range of things, or how does this work usually? Like, does it happen throughout the day, or?
It happens, there's not like a specific category of things that it happens around. It's just like usual things, like I put this tissue box here and this tissue box was supposed to be sitting there, but I might go home and think, oh, like, did I put the tissue box there? Even though I'll remember that I did it, I'll still worry and think, like, what if I didn't? And like, it's usually around things like that I know are important. Like for instance, like the door situation, like if I didn't lock the door, somebody could have broken in or like stolen something. Or like, let's say I need to put this tissue box here because you need to come in the morning and grab it and use it, so it needs to be there, then I'll worry about it and I'll stress and I'd be like, oh, what if I didn't? And then she's gonna be upset at me. So it's like things that have like, things that might have a consequence are things that I worry about a lot. And even if I know at the back of my mind that I definitely did it, I'll still worry and think like, oh, what if I didn't?
So you tend to worry and repeat things in your head, it sounds, that have meaning, that are important, that have a consequence.
Yeah.
And possibly something bad could happen as a result of not checking or not having done it right.
Yeah, and I worry that like if I didn't do it, even though like at the back of my mind I consciously know that I did, if I didn't, then like something like, not like something bad might happen, but like, you know, if that's supposed to be there and it's not for you, then I feel like I'm, not that I'm a bad person, but I feel like I'm not reliable.
That sounds like a hard feeling to have.
Yeah.
And do you find that this takes up large parts of your day? Is this like a constant thing, or is this something that how often does this happen?
Every day about random things, and it's like, I can't say when it started, but I know that it's kind of like, lately it's been more about more things, but it's always been something that I've dealt with.
So this is something that's been happening for a while now, but it's starting to get to the point where it's taking up too much time, it's taking up too much energy, and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed by it?
Yeah, and I feel like at this point it's kind of interfering with like for instance, when I got to school, I couldn't concentrate during my lectures that day, and so it's kind of like starting to interfere with like my, how do you say, I forget the word, productivity. It's starting to interfere with my productivity because I'm not able to like, I'm more concerned about what I think I might have not done than like being in the moment and like paying attention during my lectures or like other things.
Well, it sounds like it'd be really hard to focus on the task at hand with all these thoughts coming up.
Yeah.
And you said a few seconds ago about when you think that you're forgetting a task, that it might be a reflection of you, it sounded, that it speaks about you. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I guess it's more like I strive for perfection, and I want to be perfect, and I want to be reliable, and in everything I do, in all my jobs and all my school stuff, I want to be a reliable person. And that brings me a lot of anxiety, because if like, let's say if I told you I was going to arrive to my appointment at like 11, and now I put in my navigation and it's 11:05, then I automatically think like, oh, she's going to think I'm unreliable if I'm late, and I stress about like having to like text you and say like, hey, I'm running 5 minutes late, or I'm running 6 minutes late. And so it's like I constantly worry and stress, and I always want to be a reliable person. So when like something like that happens and I think like, oh, a bad consequence can come out of it, then I feel like that kind of interferes with like my vision of my reliable and perfect self.
So you worry a lot about being reliable and being present in all that you do, and having a like solid presence in all that you do, it seems. Do you think that this is something you've strived for in most of what you do, this level of perfection?
Yeah, and it's like, because I have that, if I do something wrong, I find myself ruminating about it a lot, and then I worry and I stress about it and I get upset about it, and then like for instance, if I leave the session and I think like, oh, I withheld this or I didn't say that, then I'll like constantly think like, why didn't I say that to her? Why didn't I do this? And I'll probably keep thinking the same thoughts and cycling back and forth about like what if and why and this and that for like the next week until I see you again. Okay. And so it's kind of like that along with like my what if and my worries kind of like combine and then take up all of my time and energy.
Yeah. It can sound like a lot.
Yeah.
And when you say that you ruminate, how does this cycle end? You're thinking about this for a long time, you're thinking I came a few minutes late to my session, and you're having all these thoughts. How do you find like a conclusion to those thoughts?
Well, I worry about them and I stress about them and I get upset and I'm really hard on myself when I feel like I wasn't reliable. And so when that happens, I'm usually like really like upset about it for like a few days, and then it just kind of goes away, or I find a new thing to worry about, and so I forget about that one. So it's kind of like my mind's constantly like, what can I worry about next?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And once you ruminate about something and you see that something comes next and you worry about something next, do you stop and ever reflect on the thing that you worried past and see that maybe, for example, you came a few minutes late to an appointment but time has passed and there's some distance and maybe it wasn't as serious as you thought it was?
Yeah, I mean, eventually I get over it. But sometimes I'll find myself kind of seeking comfort from like my friends or family and saying like, hey, you know, I was 5 minutes late to my session and I was really stressed by it and I feel like she's gonna think I'm reliable. What do you think? And usually like my sisters will be like you're fine. It was 5 minutes. Relax.
So you seem to be seeking some reassurance from family and
yeah,
friends.
And it's I think it goes back to like me kind of wanting to be perfect, so it's not necessarily that like I felt imperfect for you, but then like kind of maybe me seeking assurance from my family members, kind of maybe, I don't know, indirectly I'm kind of seeking assurance from them as well, like, oh, you're fine, or like approval from them from like, hey, like I wasn't perfect this once, what do you think, am I okay still? Yeah.
What you've said perfect a few times. What does that mean to you to be perfect?
I guess like a reliable person and somebody that's like right most of the time, hopefully. I don't know. I think I'm really hard on myself, I think. I just want to do everything correctly and always be on time and always say the right things, and when I say something wrong I always find myself ruminating about it and it's very overwhelming. Like I understand that I understand that like nobody's perfect, right? And sorry, I'm getting a little sick. I understand that like nobody's perfect and like everybody makes mistakes. Oh, that's a song. But I understand that like everybody makes mistakes and you know things come up in everybody's life where that they're not proud of. But it's like for me, I feel like I'm just extra hard on myself and I don't accept the fact that like I'm a human just like everybody else, and yes, I might do things wrong sometimes and that's okay. So I think I just find myself being really hard on myself.
Yeah, because it sounds like you know that perfection is a very hard standard, and like you said, nobody is perfect and it's really hard to get there. And yet I also hear that you know this, but you also try very hard to be perfect. So that's a really hard standard to meet, right? Trying to be something that you also have a lot of forgiveness for others and to not be perfect, right?
Yeah, like for instance, if somebody else does the same things, I'll be like, oh, you're fine, like that doesn't mean that you're not perfect, like everybody makes a mistake, or like everybody messes up sometimes. Like I feel like the advice that I would give to a friend isn't the same that I give to myself. I feel like I hold myself to a higher standard where I feel like I owe it to people around me where I should be perfect for them.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of forgiveness and acceptance for others, like friends.
Yeah.
But for yourself, you're being a little more hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've said that the ruminating takes up a lot of time and it's getting in the way of studying, you've said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why don't you tell me a little bit about how you think it affects your relationships?
How it affects my relationships. I think I'm in a relationship right now. I have a boyfriend. We've been together for almost 5 years. We've definitely had ups and downs. We've had a lot of downs and we've had a lot of ups. So it's been a journey. But I feel like, same thing with him. I guess the same thing applies in the relationship, but it's more so like in the essence of time management, where again I strive to be perfect and have enough time for school, for work, for like extracurricular activities, managing my time with like my sisters and my parents and my boyfriend. And so it gives me a lot of stress trying to distribute the little free time that I have with away from school, and trying to spend enough time with like everybody equally. And so like sometimes my boyfriend I'll find where I'll be like, oh, like my sister's gonna be home alone today, and I've only seen him like one day that week. I'll kind of be like, hey, like, she's alone, so I don't want to leave her alone, but then like you're fine because you'll watch your movie. So I kind of end up kind of flaking on him and then spending time with my sister because I feel like my sister's lonely and I want to be with her too. And so it's kind of like a puzzle piece, right? Where I kind of want to be like, I want to put this piece here and that piece there and that piece there and that piece there, and it all together comes to be this perfect puzzle. And so it's like everything in every avenue is overwhelming.
What I hear is that you do care a lot about, you prioritize others' feelings a lot, and you prioritize the fact that their time is valuable to you, and you're very forgiving towards them, but you also, it sounds like, are spreading yourself. It's hard to spread yourself so thin, right? And to spread yourself out for everybody. And that can be really tough.
Yeah, it is.
Especially because you're taking on so much right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that spreading yourself so thin has caused the worry and the rumination to get worse?
Yeah.
How would you say that looks like now, like day to day for this last few weeks?
Well, it's like a constant cycle where it's like I'll spread myself thin and then I'll worry and I'll ruminate, and so it's kind of like continuous. It's like there's never a downtime. There's always something that my mind is worrying about or stressing about.
Okay. That sounds like a lot. I'm so sorry. And in terms of, you talked a lot about like wanting to be perfect and that goal. Would you say that is something that you've always had since you were young, or is that something that's new, or since you started school?
No, I've had it for like as long as I can remember, but it's progressively like getting worse and worse. It's like, especially when like there's new changes in my life, like school and things like that, I get overwhelmed and then it gets worse.
Has there been a new change recently?
Well, I started school.
Okay. So that's a lot to take on right now. I can imagine that must be difficult. Do you think that with that new change, spreading yourself thin might be another like, how has that looked at through grad? You're saying you started school. How is that playing out?
It's tough. Yeah, it's what brings me in. Yeah.